Namaskar. Today is July 8th, Thursday, and welcome to Daily Global Insights with Sree and Sree, episode 199. We have a lot to cover and shall jump straight to global news. Sridharji, welcome to PGurus channel, and we are starting with the global news item in an astonishing announcement. Kurt Campbell, Biden point man for Asia, tells United States does not support Taiwan's independence, and he further states that he understands the sensitivities involved on this issue and commits to step up further engagement with Southeast Asia. Who runs United States? Who are defining the policies, in your opinion, sir?
I think it's $1 billion question as to who is running United States and who is setting the policies, who, when you wake up in the morning, is directing a specific announcement. So this is a classic case which is going to stir up the pot, with Kurt going around and saying, making a statement, we are not focused on Taiwan independence, understanding the sensitivities of issues without mentioning what the sensitivities are. And our real focus is on re-engaging the Southeast Asian or ASEAN nations. I think I think it is putting the cat amongst the pigeons. Having said that the indispensability of Taiwan's independence and putting everything aside, casting everything aside, and prioritizing this as the topmost over all the South China Sea issues, and now this statement from the point man for Indo-Pacific, Kurt Campbell, is nothing but, as you rightly said, the context. There's more chaos rather than normalcy.
And Japan appoints Mr. Takeo Akiba-san as the new National Security Advisor and the head of National Security Secretariat. The veteran diplomat who was in the foreign ministry earned a reputation as an icebreaker and is also known for his diplomatic skills in dealing with complex situations. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I think that the Japan has read U.S. foreign policy better than the U.S. Public or many in the U.S. administration itself. The fact that they have recognized that there is going to be this yo-yo on U.S. foreign policy. So Japan is now saying, we got to take charge of our own destiny. We got to have our own diplomats dealing with the situations that is likely to come. And Japan has made it very clear, Taiwan is a red line as far as Japan is concerned, because it's a lurking danger that only can spill over into Japan. And even went on to state that should there be an issue around Taiwan, they will unleash their national security forces, self-defense forces, to make sure that the Taiwan's independence is preserved and protected. So this is a very great move by the Japanese, bringing in a very seasoned national security and a defense and a career diplomat into the mix of things to deal with the situation that's likely to arise in Asia.
And China's hostility endures the rise of a more antagonistic India, and the borders are now armed to the teeth, and any minor skirmish can flare up into a big conflict. China's brinksmanship is at its peak now. It has appointed a new commander to oversee border operations, and I'm also hearing that the previous commander has now been promoted, so to say that even the Galwan defeat was not a defeat after all. How do you read this, Sridharji?
I think the way I read it is that the brinkmanship will continue. China never, under Xi Jinping, never takes a step backward. It basically tries to create this illusion of what you call engagement and on the rhetoric, but often you find it only is using this window of time from a consolidation. It comes back even stronger and more what you call more rhetoric and more brinkmanship is what you see. You are seeing this in Taiwan. You are seeing this in South China Sea. You are seeing this in the Africa. You are seeing it in the Indian Ocean. You are seeing it in the Pacific. Of course, Himalayan kingdom is one of the citadels of the unfinished job of the Xi Jinping and the past Chinese regimes. So we will continue to see problems in the India-China border. There will never be peace in that region unless there is a change in the CCP leadership, which looks at the world in a different context than the present lens with which they are viewing the world.
And Singapore omits Sinovac from vaccination totally. We've been saying this about the adverse reaction to Sinovac from many countries. So I think this is now becoming more and more of a flood. Sridharji, Sinovac is China's flagship vaccine product. I think they are trying to come up with another one also now. I think Sinopec, if I'm not wrong. So this they have blundered badly. First you create the virus, and now you can't come up with a vaccine for that. What gives her? But how is it that it is still under so much control inside China?
Yeah, China is controlled by CCP, so therefore there's nothing that one can do in terms of pointing out its flaws unless they realize it by themselves. So Sinovac is emerging as a classic failure in conjunction with the classic distribution of alpha, beta, delta, lambda, and I don't know what's to come next.
Well, there are only 26 characters in the Greek alphabet, so we will know soon. It's going to be a combination of two characters at one time. The Russian Black Sea skirmishes will linger on, and the recent incident entails tracking of a Spanish ship in the Black Sea by the Russians. Crimea and NATO footprint in Black Sea are the causes for concern. The waning interest in South China Sea and growing interest in Black Sea and the Atlantic by US foreign policy thinkers seems to be driving the issues. Now, vaccines and lifting of restrictions are speeding up euro recovery. Let's hope that this continues, because we know and we have told you that UK is going to lift all its restrictions in a few days. Sridharji, do you think that Delta is going to give Europe a miss? What are your thoughts?
Well, Delta is already in Europe. It's in UK, it's in Germany, it's in Poland. So it's not going to give it a mix. There is a perceived hope. I think Boris Johnson answered the question. Pandemic is not going to go away. We can't keep people locked eternally. People have to get used to live with it, just like many other ailments that they live with. And people are prepared to say, okay, we know we have a pandemic, we know we have issues, we know there's a vaccine available now. In the absence of a vaccine, people have a tendency to say, okay, I can blame that there's no vaccines. So now there's vaccines available. And by the way, US is around, UK is around 70%. Germany is also somewhere around those high numbers. So Netherlands is probably almost fully vaccinated. So you have many countries in Europe which say we have a vaccine, we have vaccinated people, so let's deal with the situation. I think that's what points to people getting out. When the Delta comes in or Lambda comes in, I'm sure that they will deal with it as the case may be. Russia, I think you have answered everything in that context. So if you talk about foreign policy disasters, we have a disaster in South China Sea, we have a disaster in East China Sea. We now have a disaster in the NATO. All unwarranted things, especially the first two. South China Sea should have been the focus, and everything should have been curtailed in that point, rather than leaving the finger in every piece of pie. But it looks like we are heading towards that. There's two more to come.
And Haitian president assassinated at home by gunmen, and a state of emergency has been declared. And it appears that the purported assassins have also been eliminated, which kind of begs the question, then you will never know who actually ordered the hit. So we are going to wait and see how things play out. Now there is an attack on Erbil airport in Iraq. Iran offers to help to mediate and resolve Taliban-Afghan differences. Looters ransack Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan after the US troops leave. Sir, taken together, looks like Taliban is slowly but steadily taking over control of Afghanistan.
Rapidly, sir, not slowly and steadily, but rapidly and quickly taking charge of the destiny of Afghanistan. There's no doubt about it. And the rapid disintegration of Afghan is very visible. Apparently, the Bagram airport was ransacked and looted the moment the troops left. No wonder the troops left in the middle of the night, switching off the lights without telling anybody, because if they had made an announced withdrawal, you can only assume the skirmishes that would have occurred. So when you look at the world in context, so Biden is now beginning to feel the heat on the Afghan situation. Already we have, skirmishes in Iraq, Syria. Then we have the Russian situation. Then we have the Taiwanese situation. Then you have the South China situation. And then you add the Himalayan kingdom, which now they have completely neglected, but very different case when Mike Pompeo and President Trump were at the helm. That was the concentration point in conjunction with South China Sea. So, in a nutshell, world is heading towards some kind of a chaos in conjunction with the COVID situation. Let's hope we get out of it.
And let's take a look at India news. I am the longest guest of India, says Dalai Lama. The Minister of External Affairs, Subramaniam Jaishankar, is going to make a refueling halt on his way to Russia and perhaps will be stopping at Afghanistan, and oil will be on the agenda. India also prepares contingency plan as the situation deteriorates in Afghanistan. People should remember that there are at least 5,000 Hindus and Sikhs and other minorities stuck in Kabul area, in and around that area, that need to be perhaps now evacuated on an emergency basis. We have to wait and see how that plays out. India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, he is continuing to be the Commerce Minister. Piyush Goyal pitches for services trade agreement among friendly nations of the Indo-Pacific. The trade has grown from US dollars 33 billion in 2001 to 262 billion in 2020. The minister also emphasized the need to build capacity in IT, that is information technology, and e-commerce. Now, Piyush Goyal is also going to be handling textiles. Railways has been taken out of his hands. We'll talk a little bit more about the cabinet reshuffle in our next news item. Sir, your thoughts?
So my thoughts are, first and foremost, you can see there's a proactive engagement by the Indians as far as Afghanistan is concerned. And so they made a stopover. This meeting did occur. They had a meeting with the Iranian, the current president, discussed Afghanistan and the consequences in and around the region. In the same breath, it looks like Tehran is also saying that it can be an independent, trusted arbitrator between Afghanistan and between Taliban and the mainstream Afghans. Having said that, I think that moving to the from a security matter to the trade matter, it's very refreshing to see that India is moving away from quad thinking, keeping the quad thinking alive, but at the same time, the strategic flexibility of developing trade partnerships with like-minded nations. 262 billion trade around the 12 countries is quite a significant dollar value by virtue of the trade. And you have a whole host of nations in that mix, ranging from UAE to Singapore to so on. And so this again augurs well for India. It's extending its reach with and working with the like-minded nations in terms of the developing the trade between various nations, which indirectly contributes towards the economic growth of those nations. But it's also important to point out one of the areas that China is also focusing on is IT, information technology, and the commerce platforms. It's good that Minister Piyush Goyal has pointed out that let's kind of build capacity and capabilities for people who are following this domain. Now, Singapore has reaching saturation point in the data centers and moving some of them into offshore. That means they are going to be located in ships in the ocean, the data center capabilities. So this is all in that context. So it seems like India has got the priorities right in terms of what is going on and engaging with the like-minded partners appropriately.
An Indian cabinet reshuffle reflects the national priorities and geopolitical shifts. Civil aviation, commerce, trade, textiles, agriculture, medium and small scale industry, MSC sector, shipping and waterways, petroleum, all given importance in the choices. I was watching some channels yesterday on how people were looking at this, sir. First, perhaps you can give us your thoughts and then I will add in my 2 cents.
So I'm giving from an outside-in from a point of view, rather inside. Now, if I take they have used the diplomats very well. For example, Hardeep Puri gets petroleum, from Pradhan. Now, if you see the expansion of the footprint around the petroleum, his diplomatic reach helps. And then he works very closely with his esteemed colleague, Dr. Jaishankar. Then when you look at the trade and commerce, you find that textiles, agriculture, food, commerce, it's all have been consolidated under Piyush, which gives the the strategic importance around not only the commerce and global deals, but also the two important sectors which were neglected, agriculture and textiles, right under his stewardship. They have unbundled the SME sector from Gadkari and given it with a dedicated focus to a minister who can focus on that specific, from sourcing capital to expansion of credit to providing any kind of augmented support. Then when you take a look at the shipping ports, which was again under the national infrastructure under Gadkari, they have given a dedicated minister for focus around the shipping ports and so on. So to me, as a person who looks at from outside, and then civil aviation goes to the young man, the Scindia. Civil aviation, India is going to be one of the most densely traveled countries in the world. The air traffic is expected to be number one. So therefore, it requires a dedicated focus rather than lump test. So when I look at this overall context, and also the people behind the very, very qualified people, running this show, at least on paper, it looks very good. Again, Rajiv Chandrasekhar and Mr. Vaishnav, both technocrats being given importance in those ministries, is again a reflection that the right people are being placed, placed into the roles. Now, I don't know all the political connotations. I'm only looking at it from an outside in, from a technical point of view.
So I was watching a channel where two respected people were giving a completely opposite points of view. One said that the fact that Ravi Shankar Prasad and Prakash Javadekar and a few others have been dropped tells you that Modi was looking at the performance of some of these ministers in changing the portfolios. The other person said, look, PMO rules everything. They are handing down the diktats. They are telling people what they should be doing. So there isn't really much of an independence in each ministry other than the fact that they have a lal batti, they call it, a red color thing on top of their cars to move about. So these are, contrasting points of view. Where the truth is will only be revealed after perhaps 3 to 6 months time, when you can look at specific ministers and their accomplishments and how they present themselves, the facts of their ministry in public. The communication has been an Achilles heel in this administration of Narendra Modi. 7 years, they haven't really had a serious press conference where the public is free to ask any questions. I wonder what there is to hide. Even when there were high points, they didn't do that. So that's just a way of functioning. It seems like the Janata seems to like it. So we have to take it at that point of view. This is a democracy. Let's go on to the next one. Some states to roll out a new labor reforms in 3 to 5 months. The law has been passed in the parliament. Public enterprises are brought under the finance ministry, as many enterprises are either listed for disinvestment or IPO. That was one surprise, that the finance minister has not been changed. So we don't know what is going on. And again, when you look at that, it lends credence to the observation of one of the panelists, that it's the PMO which is calling the shots. So if you have just a placeholder as a minister, it doesn't matter. So these are just views. We should not take them as facts unless somebody comes in, like somebody of the heft of the prime minister comes and says, this is how we are operating. It's a very presidential form of government. We have to wait and see how it goes. Sir, your thought before we move on to US news.
So my view is that in a democracy, there is always going to be two views. One view, yes, the other view, no. So therefore, you accept and take it with a pinch of salt and we move on. The second I look at it as, and then I conclude, we transition, is metrics measures performance, not press conferences, not announcements, so at the end of the day, you have in India, almost every day there is an election. Every day there's some election. Every day there's a fight that is going on. Every channel has got lots of noises. So there's a lot of interactions that goes on. But let's look at the metrics of, that's how I look at it, and say, what's the metrics of measurement, and see whether India is making progress, and then whether it is calibrating to make the change. I mean, COVID is a classic example of what happened and where they have moved relative to the rest of the world. Okay, so on that note, we transition in the interest of time.
And let's take a look at United States news. MAGA, Make America Great Again versus Masters. Trump sues Google. You can see I'm standing in front of Google, Facebook, Twitter and to end illegal censorship of the conservatives. Big tech is the biggest misinformation pushers on the basis of the litigation. Now, a lot of people have weighed in saying that such cases have really bit the dust. What is different about this? Perhaps Sridharji can cast some light on how this particular lawsuit is different from all the other ones that have been tried since about last 6 months.
Well, I think that there are two things here. There's one is political, and the second is there is judicial or legal. So there is a political spin in what President Trump is attempting to do, which is to say, I'm now bringing class action suit. Let's kind of bring these people to the front end of the eyesight or eyeballs or the discussions, and let them kind of reveal as to what the basis is. So at the end of the day, this case may fizzle out, but lots of things could come out as to the whole governance process, which in itself is a question mark in some of these institutions. So my view is, while, as you correctly pointed out, there is a complete, if you just Google this class action suit, all the first 2 pages points to the links or to the left liberal media. Nothing but rhetoric, which is to say, this is President Trump's rhetoric, and this will bite the dust, as you rightly point out. Now, somewhere you go down, maybe 3rd page or 4th page, you'll find a link which says, hey, there may be an interesting perspective whether there are discriminatory practices that are being applied for similar sets of actions, but judged differently in 2 circumstances. Whether that is established as part of the case remains to be seen. And I think that is the aim of President Trump, to say, we are being discriminated. You can be like, one of the stations to say, I only support these views, and therefore, if you are that view, please come and advertise on my platform. Then it is perfectly legal as far as here. But you can't say you are objective and use indiscriminatory practice to put down. That's what is going to come out of this case.
And we are running a little over time, but I just want to add 1 cent of my thought on this. See, the reporting of the origin of the COVID virus, how that has gone from one end to the other, and how these social media platforms are reflected, I'm sure is going to be presented as evidence on part of Trump to say that these people were wrong initially to suppress it, because their lives could have been saved if they had been more objective in their reporting. This is just me reading the tea leaves. I could be wrong, but there is compelling evidence about this. So this could be something that could sway the mind of the judge on how they reported something which actually harmed lives. So let's take a look at it and wait and see how it plays out. Very, very interesting days ahead. Biden's broken reopening as more job openings get posted, and on the contrary, hiring has declined, is highlighting the ongoing shortage of workers. Workers prefer to stay home and earn generous payouts as part of the human infrastructure bill. This needs to stop. The Democrats are saying that human infrastructure bill is a once in a lifetime opportunity to fix racial inequalities. This by subsidizing everything from buying homes to going to college, paying for internet service, to be funded by the government. Bills to be pushed through without Republican votes. They still enjoy a very slender majority in Senate, where the vice president will be coming to cast in her vote. I'm sure at some point there's going to be pushback from the office of the vice president, because you have to see how things are headed. I could be wrong about this, but I have a feeling that that cushion may not be available for very long. Your thoughts, sir?
So my thoughts are very simple, which is clearly there's not synchronizing the timing of the withdrawal of the unemployment as well as the direct payments early enough is creating a problem for revival of the economy. He said that the economy will be revived by summer. It doesn't look like that. We could be slipping into winter, because everybody is saying, you give me the benefits. And by the way, there are a number of class action suits that's being filed by individuals for states denying them the benefits that is being given at the federal level. So those cases were likely to take up, and people are saying they're going to stay back at homes. So I think this has been very badly played out. And there's also the other thing that you pointed out, which is namely the human infrastructure bill. It looks like it's not going to solve the problem. It is just a social dispensation that people are talking about. Whether it will stop racial discrimination, which is an entirely different subject, begs the question as to where these priorities are. There is another domestic policy, mishandling that is going on. Again, I don't know whether I still don't believe this is Biden's agenda. This is somebody else running the agenda. I don't even know how much of it is cognizant to Biden. Anyway, on that note, as I say, we can cover this topic for 5-6 minutes, but we don't have time. We're already very, very late to our time obligations.
We are from the government and we are here to help defending the controversial door-to-door vaccination campaign. Is this another scandal in the making following the 2020 election challenges? Is the government collecting data for political purposes? These are some of the questions being asked about the latest proposal of the Biden administration to go from door to door to administer vaccination. There are some states where the vaccination rate is very low, and it is those states that are experiencing a spike in COVID numbers. So with your permission, I'm going to put up the COVID numbers at this point in the United States as we look at California, Virginia, Maryland, Kentucky, Washington, and so on and so forth. California sits right at the top with total cases of close to 4 million, sir. I want you to take it away and then we can discuss some more about what's happening around the world.
No, there are two specific reasons why we are pointing out this. Data is not being pointed out. Active cases in the United States remain at 4.8. This is probably the third time or fourth time we're making this point. And then if you take a look at the active cases in each of the states, California tops the list with 1.68 million, followed by Virginia at 612,000, and then followed by Maryland, which is at 441,000, and the list goes on. You can see it on the screen. But the point that we're making is, if you have so many active cases, I'm going to jump ahead and talk about another comment that has come from CDC. More than 50% of these cases is the Delta variant. So more than 50% of these cases, the world raised a hue and cry on India. Here in the United States, which was one of the first countries to vaccinate and have the vaccination program in place, we still have 4.8 million active cases, and over 50% of them are the Delta cases. Is a real warning, is a real problem. That is the headwinds that we can see as we get into the winter, because winter is when we have winter virus, flu virus coming in, and can be potentially a challenging situation for United States. This is the significance of this data.
And 75 House members write to Biden making a bipartisan appeal to open the US-Canada borders to ease international travel and allow people to come in from the north of United States also. We have to wait and see how this plays out. The largest teachers union, which advocated the CRT theory, we said this thing a few days ago, now quietly removes all resolutions, appeals and notes of the pro-CRT theory. Wow, what a volte-face. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, in 48 hours, repercussions. Teachers get shown up. Those who provide this kind of... see, one of the things is you present historical evidence of facts as they are. Why should you calibrate it as racial theory, pro-racial theory, critical race theory, anti-racial theory? It all seems like the progressive self-propagating agenda. There's a number of things that I would have listed as to what we have seen here in Brooklyn. For example, certain flags getting burned, people agitating in the main streets of Manhattan, in some of the main streets. Why is this? Why has all these kinds of activities which have crept in? And is it to self-justify? Are you using various mechanisms to self-justify? And basically, this is the belief of many, that they're trying to take it right to the schools and advocate that what is being done is justified because of some of the past actions. So obviously, there's been repercussions, and the big union, the National Employees Teachers Union or National Teachers Union, and all of a sudden to withdraw the stuff in 48 hours, doesn't smell very good in terms of the integrity and the genuineness of some of the issues that is being floated around.
Sir, I wanted to also touch upon the COVID situation in India. We missed that thing. My apologies. Now I have that map graphic on the screen now, sir. There are about 3.6 million vaccinations in the day past. And if you could just want to touch upon that screen, this is the screen that comes after the US numbers.
Okay, I think the critical message on the Indian situation is I think India is approaching close to 400 million vaccines. 300 million or close to 300 million will be vaccinated with one dose, and it's about 65 million or 70 million people vaccinated with two doses. It augurs well in terms of the acceleration. India added the fourth Moderna to its list. Sputnik is now there, Covaxin, Covishield. Very soon they are likely to add the fifth, which is the Zedila or Zykus vaccine. So India seems to be getting better. It remains to be seen whether they are well organized and orchestrated to deal with the situation that could arise from the the Delta variant that is not yet wide, but it is prevalent in India. So that is the key challenge. But when you look at the numbers, they have really made progress even on the vaccination rates as well as the active cases. The active cases is now roughly around 450,000, which is equivalent to one state in United States, or equal to four times India is equal to one California. That just puts in context in terms of where we are in terms of the active cases of COVID.
And in markets news, United States stocks posted a positive session on Wednesday as big tech names like Apple and Microsoft carried both the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq Composite to new all-time highs. The downshift in the benchmark 10-year Treasury note yield continued on Wednesday when the rate fell below 1.3% to its lowest level since February. So, with your permission, I'll put up the next chart, which talks about the rise of Dow and S&P 500 and Nasdaq, and then we can take a look at the 10-year Treasury note.
The markets are up yesterday. The markets are going to be down today by 450 points. We'll come to that in a minute. But yesterday's chart reflects the end of day market positions. We are already at almost the year-end targets that was predicted by the market pundits. That's the message on that specific chart. And all the tech stocks did well, especially when the rates go down, the tech stocks go up. When the rates go up, then the economic recovery stocks, or the value stocks, grow up.
Let's take a look at the 10-year Treasury numbers, sir. There's a chart I have got now. The US 10-year Treasury yield, now it is at 1.32%. It used to be at 1.65 in April.
Yes, 30 basis point slip in 4 months is a reflection that there's more money going to be flooded into the system, and that means there's going to be discounting of the US dollar, and the bond market is preparing itself for not inflation, but potential fallout by virtue of the excess liquidity. The reason why there's a 450 points early, futures, this is a dip today, is that there is now a growing fear whether the economic recovery will happen as predicted by virtue of this COVID situation around the world, and general economic recovery around the world is casting doubt on the markets. And the bond markets probably read it very well. And contrary to what we predicted, kudos to Jerome Powell, who said, let's hold the rates. We're not going to lift the rates, and we'll lift the rates if required in 2023 twice, but let's hold the rates. And you can see the bond markets have regulated itself to the excess liquidity that is coming into the system, excess borrowing that is happening, but without the compounding economic recovery that is expected. All the 2021, these big numbers of 10%, 8%, 6%, etc., is just the spurt caused by the peak demand that will come in, but it will normalize and taper as we go into the outer years past 2022 or 2022 onwards. So one has to factor that in. That 2021 is a bounty year, but 2022 onwards, one has to be very careful in the allocation of the capital.
And a couple of announcements before we round it off today. One is that we had a slight outage of internet on my side. The server went down and it came up 2 minutes late. So I apologize. These are things that are beyond our control. In fact, we had a power cycle problem also over the night. Things are really getting heated up in the California now. So that was why it was delayed by a couple of minutes. But our viewers have been very patient. They waited and then we came back online fairly quickly. The other thing is about Ask Karthik. 2 weeks we missed it, but he's back on today. We'll be going live at 9 p.m. IST, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So do tune in for that. And as always, Sridharji, let's sign off. Tomorrow is a special day. It is episode number 200. We have a very special small segment of a 50-second video clip for you to watch as to how we have evolved over the last several months. Sridharji, this journey has been a miraculous journey. We've really risen, and look at the number of things we predicted correctly, and they all turned out to be true. And we are like continuing to reinforce the fact that we are the tip of the spear. Your thoughts are, and then we can sign off today.
Thank you so much, first, Sree Iyer ji, and thank you so much for all the audiences who have supported and who have been part of this journey. And 200 sessions is a very good milestone. Very happy to continue to contribute to the growing trends, as well as analyze and interpret the way we see it. It doesn't mean that it has to be correct all the time, but we back it up with our own versions of data, which we present as well. All our analysis and insights are based on the data that we use as a mechanism and a basis for sharing our views and opinions. Hope you all have found it useful, and we look forward to your continued support as we embark into the next phase.
Thank you very much, sir. Namaskar, and see you all tomorrow.
Namaskar, and thank you.